o'clock, and I made a decision that it was cruel and undue punishment for you guys.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm a loudmouth, so hopefully you can hear me. But my name is Mathias, and I am the new coordinator of the President's Community Arts and Lectures program. And so bear with us if I make errors. Mary Lee Shelton, who is the founder of the program, is, as we speak, in Philadelphia doing some work regarding the women's platform that they want to present to the Pope. And so she's doing very, very important work.
Yeah.
Otherwise she would be here as well. She sends her regards, though. And so obviously I was ready for the, to be outside, but, it was crazy hot, and I just couldn't see everybody sitting outside, just roasting away. We do have water over there, and tea and coffee, and some cookies and refreshments. And so we'll dive into that, if you haven't already, after the event. We'll make this as short as possible. So I just would like to acknowledge a few members from the community that are good enough to be here. I'm just going to kind of go through the crowd. So we have Girish Shah, who's here from the Interfaith Council, and
Andrew Kile. Andrew Kile.
Rukile.
Andrew.
Okay. And of course we do have the mayor and the vice mayor and the president of the Board of Supervisors here, which is very exciting to us. So Dr. Breland is going to be talking about that in just a second. And we also have Ruben Solorio, who's going to be doing our invocation, and he's on behalf of Bishop McGrath, Office of Social Justice for the Diocese of San Jose, and also John Pedigo, yes. John Pedigo is going to say a few remarks regarding Deacon Alvarez as well. If you notice, we have beautiful photos right here of the deacon in his younger days, and then closer to when he unfortunately passed away. And a lot of members of the family are here, which is just a beautiful tribute to what a special guy he was. We are dedicating a peace pole. We have 3 peace poles already. There is a group called the Peace Pole Program, and you can go online, look it up, and they are developing, and selling, and putting out peace poles all over the country. And so for every peace pole they sell, they are donating 10 trees to be planted in the continent of Africa. And so it's a very big deal. As you probably have heard, the continent was devastated. It doesn't have too many trees, and so this is a restorative thing. It was also started by the UN. And so it's a very worthy cause. And so we're very excited to have our 4th peace pole, which is sitting right there. So we brought it in. We were going to plant the peace pole, but I think we're just going to stay inside. So that's that. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our wonderful President, Byron Breland, San Jose City College.
Thank you so much, Professor Mathias, for sort of getting us started and getting us organized here, and of course bringing the event inside in light of the heat. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. This is certainly a momentous occasion for us to be honoring Deacon Sal Alvarez with the installation of a peace pole here at San Jose City College. And as Mathias mentioned, there are folks here that I want to acknowledge for being with us. And I want to start out first by introducing formally the mayor of the city of San Jose, Mayor Sam Liccardo. Next, I would like to introduce, sitting right next to him, the Vice Mayor, Rose Herrera. And someone you're going to hear from very shortly, our Supervisor of the County Board of Directors, David Cortese. Master of Ceremonies, and I'll invite him up in a few moments once we go through a few more introductions. And of course, we have folks here from the college that I believe everybody should take a look at who's here. And without further ado, I want to introduce to you our new interim chancellor, Dr. John. What's your name? Not coming to mind. Henderson. John Henderson. Our interim chancellor. Also, I'd like to introduce two other people from the district office. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Rosalie Ledesma, as our Executive Director of Government and External Affairs. And on the camera is Mr. Sam Ho, who is our Director of Community Relations and Diversity. So, Sam. And finally, I do want to introduce someone who's also instrumental in helping us prepare for this event. He joined the college about a year or so ago, and his name is Mr. Jorge Escobar. He's our Vice President of Administrative Services. He keeps track of our money. So with that, I would like to now invite up our Master of Ceremonies, Supervisor David Cortese. Let's welcome David.
Thank you, President Breland, for the introduction and for all those other introductions that you just did. It's an honor to be with all of you for this special dedication to the late Reverend Deacon Sal Alvarez. I know many of you in this room would have great stories to share regarding how Sal impacted your life. You would be impacted by Sal's life if you were in contact with him at all, but you'd be impacted by his life even if you weren't in direct contact with him, which is the sign, I think, of a great life lived. We lost him recently. He would be tremendously pleased, given his many roles, including his role in the Catholic Church, to be honored and recognized this way. Perhaps, as Vice Mayor Herrera said, at a special time, when the Pope is en route to Philadelphia, this would be a time when Sal was recognized by Pope Benedict with one of the highest honors that the Pope can bestow. Just a few years ago, Sal would certainly appreciate that. His connection with the diocese and being a mentor to many others in this diocese, but in the interreligious community, in the interfaith community, goes beyond words. And many of the folks who are here today from the interreligious community, from the various organizations that represent interfaith here, can speak to that. But your mere presence speaks to, again, to the impact that Sal had on so many lives. I'll get a chance to say a few more words later on, but I want you to think about this image. A few years ago, at a time I was still on the San Jose City Council, the last peace train came from Los Angeles to San Jose. How many of the interfaith community remember that night? Full. The train was full of people really using this train and a ride from Southern California here to San Jose to Diridon Station. That's where the train stopped. It wasn't passing through. That's where it stopped. We decided to get off the train and hold a major conference here. A lasting image I have, literally, shows up on my laptop at home as the pictures rotate. Arun Gandhi, grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. Dolores Huerta, co-founder of United Farmworkers and partner with the other great icon, Cesar Chavez, icon of the nonviolence movement. And Yolanda King, the eldest daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King, all got off their train and started walking toward the exits with, flashes flashing and pictures being taken. And who was walking, who was holding down that triumvirate arm in arm with them? Sal Alvarez. That's the kind of reach he had, and that's what he stood for, really, in one image. And trust me, with each and every one of those individuals, he had a personal relationship, a day-to-day working relationship, including the Gandhi family. So we're so fortunate to have him here. At this time, I ask all of you to join me in welcoming another deacon, Deacon Ruben Solorio, for today's invocation. Ruben,
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Bishop McGrath, he sends his special thanks and appreciation for the life of our beloved Deacon Sal. And, County Supervisor Dave Cortese mentioned mentorship, and I am a proud mentee of Deacon Sal. He taught me acts of love and compassion and de-escalation and peace building, and how to ensure that we always put our best foot forward in a respectful and loving way in all that we do, and in order to ensure that we accomplish our goals in a peaceful manner, even when we create conflict. The end result is always peace, and I remember him for that, and we use this as a way that the three individuals that were mentioned, that were civil rights leaders, influenced his spirituality. Gandhi and Martin Luther King influenced Cesar Chavez's forming of his spirituality. Well, Deacon Sal was part of that influence. And he embraced all of those three spiritualities to make Deacon Sal's own spirituality, and that's why this invocation is dedicated to him. So we begin together. I'd like to begin together in maybe praying aloud the prayer that is on the back of his prayer card. And so together we say, Lord, make an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in the giving that we receive, it is in the pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in the dying that we are born again to eternal life. ¿Sí se puede? ¿Sí se puede?
Sí se puede.
God of all names and no name, you're so gracious and loving. We know you recognize all who believe and trust in you. Bless all who hear the just word spoken by people of peace and justice and practice it, just like our beloved Deacon Sal Alvarez. May the power of our joint prayer become more powerful than anything we can imagine. We thank you in advance for all your blessings. Oh God, bless us with discomfort at easy answers and half-truths, so that we may live deeply within our hearts. Bless us with righteous discomfort at violence, injustice, oppression, and the exploitation of your people and Mother Earth. May we do our part to work faithfully and tirelessly with and for all the faith communities that live out their faith through peace and justice. Bless us with tears to shed for those who suffer, so that we reach out with hands of peace that comfort and heal. Move our hearts and minds with the realization that we'll make a difference by comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. May we help build a more just and peace-filled world. Today we gather to embrace peace throughout the world. We stand in solidarity with those who do not have peace. We come together to celebrate the life of a man who dedicated his life to build peace in our county. In honoring Deacon Sal Alvarez, let us take a moment to reflect on the words of his dear friend and fellow peace builder, Cesar Chavez. And I quote, "I am firmly convinced that nonviolence cannot exist only in books or on the seminar level on our college campuses, but it must exist in the flesh. I have always believed that people are the most important element we have. We must put flesh into our nonviolence rather than simply talk about it." Let us pray now as we go forth with our words and transform them into acts of peace and justice, as both Cesar Chavez and Deacon Sal Alvarez both did in their lives. Let their spirit of peace guide us into action and to become peace builders in our world. Peace be with you. Shalom.
Thank you, Deacon Alvarez, for that beautiful invocation. Before I introduce our next speaker, I know they'll probably be introduced later according to the program, but I don't want to go any further without asking the Alvarez family to stand up and be recognized here today. Sylvia Thank you all for being here. You know, Sal was a prophet, I've always said, somebody who, came up to you and told you what you didn't want to hear, but it was what you needed to hear. You could wake people up to the hard reality. You want to think it's this way. Well, let me tell you how it really is. And a prophet is difficult. Right? The prophet's difficult sometimes, but Sal was also very, very good at bringing people together. He would work with the county, he would work with the city, he would shuttle back and forth from the mayor's office to the president of the Board of Supervisors, like a diplomat, bringing together resources, getting people to take the same actions, to fund the same causes. He did that right up until his passing, literally. Mayor Reed, Mayor Liccardo's predecessor, and I had the good fortune of one of those fun moments where Sal came forward and said, it's the anniversary of Cesar's death. Let's fill up a couple busloads of people and take them down to La Paz, to the headquarters of the United Farmworkers. And we're going to say Mass at the gravesite, and we're going to bring young people and people on a pilgrimage down there. And you go get the money and make it happen, of course. And you did that, and it's a moment I'll never forget. If you would have enjoyed greatly working with the current mayor of San Jose, and working with the county of Santa Clara and the city to bring us together to do greater things, to get bigger than the parts that we are. That's what he was all about. And so, in that spirit, I ask you all to give a big round of applause to the mayor of San Jose, our mayor, my mayor too, Sam Liccardo.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Dave. As Supervisor Cortese was speaking, it dawned on me. Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it. It dawned on me as Supervisor Cortese was speaking how much Sal would have wanted to have been here today. Here on International Peace Day, Sal, of course, was a passionate proselytizer of peace. But here at San Jose City College, given Sal's commitment and passion for education, particularly educational institutions like this one that open opportunity to so many in our community that have been excluded in the past. And he was so passionate, of course, as a former professor at San Jose State, as a co-founder of the school, the Graduate School of Social Work, and how important it would have been for him to be here today, of course, to be part here with his family, Sylvia and Sal Jr. and Serena and Sabrina and all his grandchildren and so many of his friends. And of course, he would have wanted to have been here at this moment. But of course, he would have wanted to have been outside, sweating in the sun, because that's the way Sal was. But he would have wanted to be here in this moment, as Vice Mayor Herrera pointed out, as the Pope is coming to this country to elevate the social conscience of the country. I know that Sal saw his role very deeply intertwined with that one. That, as so many of us who are members of big families know, there's always one member of the family who is the conscience of the family. And Sal Alvarez was the conscience of our community in so many ways. And you know, the conscience of your family often speaks at times when the speech is not as deeply appreciated by all of us, but nonetheless, the speech is true. And it's something that we need to hear. And Sal was the conscience of our community at his time in San Jose State, of course, when he first met his wife, and when he went on as an educator, the conscience of our community, certainly when he was marching with Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and so many civil rights leaders, and sacrificing as they did in so many ways. And he was the conscience of our community when he was fighting for legislation in Washington, D.C. for the Immigrant Rights Act in 1986, or in Sacramento for the right of everyone to be able to have a driver's license, or here in San Jose fighting for affordable housing. He was the conscience of our community. And so it is appropriate that we honor him today, certainly. And I know that at a time like this is an age when we see some 4 million migrants coming from a single country oppressed, racked by war. On this day of peace, it would have been Sal that would have reminded us of our commitment to peace. It would have been Sal that would have reminded us of our moral obligation to support our brothers and sisters who are migrants from another country, trying to start a new life again. It would have been Sal. And so now the baton is passed all of us, and we have to carry on Sal's work. And certainly there are many here who have been working with Sal shoulder to shoulder for many years. And I'm confident he would feel good about handing the baton off to leaders like Supervisor Cortese and many of the people here. But we've got a lot of work to do. And certainly the way we can honor Sal best is by getting that work done together. So I look forward to working with all of you as we continue to honor Sal's memory. Thank you.
I have to ask for, not my next cue, but exactly where we're going to dedicate. I see the peace pole is actually here, and I had envisioned that part we might be doing outside, but where did Eve go? I assume that we're going to stay here for the duration. Okay,
Let's remain here.
Yeah, everyone in the Alvarez family is nodding their heads, so that's good enough for me. So what's the background for this? Each year on September 21st, the United Nations invites all nations and people to honor cessation of hostilities and commemorate the International Day of Peace through education and public awareness on issues related to peace. The theme for 2015 is Partnerships for Peace, Dignity for All, which aims to highlight the importance of all segments of society to work together and strive for peace. The spirit behind the theme and celebration very much aligns with Sal's mission and the work he did. Sal understood the importance of bringing people together and the power of solidarity in effecting positive change in our communities. The work of the United Nations would not be possible without the initial partnerships that were active in its creation and the thousands of partnerships each year between governments, civil society, the private sector, faith-based groups, and other non-governmental organizations that are needed to support the organization and its future goals. Similarly, Sal Alvarez developed key partnerships with our local communities. For example, through the Institute of Nonviolence, offering trainings and mentorship opportunities to many young adults. As the chair of the League of Latin American National Health Commission, he worked tirelessly for the Health Reform Act of 2010. The fight for universal health care had become a major advocacy effort for him and organizations he represents both in the community and in Congress. I will say, just on a scale here locally, again, Sal's work in helping many interfaith leaders here carry out what the United Nations called carry the vision on a grassroots level, and actually helping many of us in the community create a nonviolence conference here every year, which draws 700 to 800 people. So today's peaceful dedication to his memory celebrates the work he did, the work that remains in his memory of continuing to forge relationships and to promote peace between members of our expansive and diverse community. I thank you all for being here in celebration of his work and his life. At this time, I'd like to call upon Father John Pedigo, and he will lead us in the dedication ceremony as we dedicate this peace bowl to the Reverend Deacon Sal Alvarez. John?
Good afternoon. December 10th, 1940, Santa Maria, California, Deacon Sal was born, and he died June 7th, 2015 in San Jose. And between those two dates is filled just a tremendous amount of events in history. But I just kind of want to touch on a couple things and just add a little commentary. First of all, faith, as we know, played a huge role, and not the central and organizing role in Sal's life. It colored his view of how he saw the world, why and how he engaged with people in activism, and his love of the UFW, and worked with the UFW and all the different causes that came out of that. He is, it's true, he was a mentor. He was one of my mentors. One could say he was more of a mentor. When he taught about nonviolence, we have to realize that nonviolence doesn't mean non-confrontation, and it doesn't mean simply contemplation. For Sal, and for other leaders that were influenced through him, the nonviolence movement was in fact about confronting the injustice, not the person. It was about lifting up those who were not able to lift up themselves up, to speak where people should not be silent, to agitate when people seem to live in denial. It was activism, where it was easier to be apathetic or quiet, and it was commitment, especially when in a time when it's not convenient to commit ourselves. Sal was the voice crying out in the wilderness. It was the voice of the earth crying out for justice. Sal was that strong voice, even in the later part of his illness, that still insisted that he needed to have a sit-down meeting for 2 hours at his house to kind of cover as many things as he could around Our Lady of Guadalupe Hall, the McDonald Hall, the former chapel for the Guadalupe Mission, which was the birthplace of Cesar Chavez's work and truly the birthplace of Latino activism in Northern California, influencing really the Western states. He knew his history, and he knew his place in history, and his feet were firmly planted in the desert of injustice. Sal, early on, was one of the youngest college professors in California. He co-founded the Graduate School of Social Work at San Jose State. So he was already doing this kind of incredible change theory and change work around education and mobilizing people. He was sought out by the bishops, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. He was sought out by them to be one of the voices that would begin to really harvest the amazing crop of talent in the Latino community that was previously ignored, and really addressing people as we did Mass, begin to do Mass in Spanish, bringing image of our Virgin of Guadalupe as a way to kind of draw people to the church, but Sal saw it not just into the pews, but into social action, out of a true Chicano, out of a true Latino sense of solidarity with the people, and one always processes and marches. Eventually, he was ordained a deacon, but that was much later, in 1979. And, you know, he went on to work, as I think that Mayor Liccardo mentioned about the Immigration Reform Act of 1986. You know, he was arrested with Martin Sheen in Watsonville. When I talked to my mom about the different people that were my mentors, and, you know, talked to him about him and Monsignor Boyle and how they got arrested, and her eyes got really big, you know, and she's like, you know, almost as big as a white man's eyes, and she was Japanese. And she's like, oh, what is it? And she's looking like this. You know, you're not going to get arrested. She says, well, you know, Deacon Sal was arrested. You know, she says, I don't care, you're not a deacon. So, you know, that kind of, again, you know, Sal was one of these people that could get you to do things that you really didn't want to do. He was able to organize a Chicano priest group, organizing priests and pressing for the ordination of Latino bishops. He worked for the county. Obviously, we all know that he worked for the county, and then he kind of directed and got that Institute for Nonviolence in San Jose, teaching people about nonviolent conflict resolution. We have that going on in Mayfair. Continue to do that. One of his last projects, and the project that he really didn't see all the way through, and that we're kind of moving towards, is really that getting the old mission church of Guadalupe named a National Historic Site as part of the National Park Service. And why that's important to Sal, that was, again, it was history. As I said before, remember I talked about his feet were firmly planted in history and in the people and the soil of this land, and he was close to the earth that understood the cries of the poor. And we don't gather for a place to tell the story. We lose our roots in San Jose. We lose our identity. Sal agitated us to understand our identity as a valley. That we aren't just a valley of Apple, Google, Yahoo, and Adobe. We're a valley of workers. A valley of campesinos. A valley of a place where Filipinos and Mexicanos worked together to better their lives hand in hand. A place that gave the imagination to a young farm worker to be a national and an international inspiration for social change, Cesar Chavez. Sal understood why it's important to tell that story. But when we pave over all of the landmarks that speak to the deeper story of San Jose and Silicon Valley, we lose a part of ourselves. Having a peace pole isn't just having a third peace pole, a number of peace poles on campus, but it's a way to kind of show that a pole in the ancient world was a connection between the divine and the creation. It was a pole that sat, whether it held up a kiva or held up different kind of structures, it was always the center that would point to different directions. That would give people a sense of where they stood, where they're going, and where they came from. Sal was a living pole, a peace pole, an agitated pole that kind of kept them moving all over the place. But nonetheless, a peace pole in himself. Having a peace pole that's named after Sal in his honor is significant. In a community college where the majority of students are first-generation college students like myself. They are first-generation people, they're first-generation Americans. They are working-class people looking to better their lives, not just for personal gain, but to help their parents. It's very fitting that we would have that pole here. But it's also to remind all of you students where you came from and where you're going. That you cannot move forward without having your foot firmly planted in your grandfather's farm in Michoacan, or in Vietnam, or in West Africa. You cannot be who you are and forget where you walked from. You have to have that direction. So we will dedicate and bless this peace bowl together by the way we live our lives. That we will honor Sal, how he inspired us and agitated us, made us uncomfortable, activated us, and made us more true to who we are. Thank you.
So, I was also reminded of something, though, that I read from Sylvia in one of her, she said that Deacon Alvarez also, you know, was interested in peace, worldwide peace, but also within the family. And that was very touching, because that idea that we are a microcosm of something bigger, and our family is what holds us together. That's why. So I needed to make that statement. All right, so.
Thank you, Professor Mathias. And I want to thank everybody for being here. In particular, I want to thank Deacon Alvarez's family for traveling, so thank you all. I also want to thank our Master of Ceremonies, Supervisor Cortese, for doing a wonderful job. And of course, Mayor Sam Liccardo and Vice Mayor Herrera, who had to leave, by the way, to be at another event, or else they would have stayed here with us. And with that, we want to actually go ahead and bring forward this representation of the Peace Pole. And I want to invite Deacon Alvarez's family to come up. We'd like to just sort of take a few pictures to dedicate the pole. It will be downstairs. We'll take it down there afterwards later, and there will be a formal installation in the ground. And I also want to thank everybody for being here. Deacon Alvarez certainly represents the principles of our community college district, the San Jose Community College District, in particular those of social justice and equal access, especially to education for everybody. And with that, actually we have a few words that folks would like to say regarding it. Yeah, sure. If it fits. It's tall. All right.
I just want to say thank you for the thought that went behind this. Sal, very well described. And for some injustice, he cannot sit still and have it go unattended. And then putting himself out there, and then actually putting himself on the line, and many times with a lot of sacrifice to himself. And I just want to thank you very much. His work continues. We are working to make sure that we try to involve the families, our Spanish-speaking families, who many times are voiceless because they lack the language, and we're trying very hard to make sure that we provide them with those opportunities. But his vision was also worldwide, and what he came back with was amazing, that what he saw in Africa exists in our country. Apartheid still exists here in our own country. And when he went to Israel, and he saw the Palestinians and the Israelis, they still have the same issues our farm workers have here. They are the farm workers in Israel, as the Palestinians. So it kind of gave him a wider view of the fact that we already, maybe the earth is big, but the problems that exist are very similar in all our countries. And we need to really work to help support each other, to bring peace, and especially not just the world, but peace within our families. In the end, that's what he found was the most rewarding for him. He was a good organizer, a good strategist. It was amazing how he could put things together to make things happen. But in the end, it was when he worked with families on one-on-one that he really got the joy, and he really began to see the connection of why you need to bring peace within the family, learn to resolve the conflicts. And yet, as parents, we had to learn to give some time to our young adults so they can learn from their own mistakes, but have the presence of their families as guides in their lives. So that took a while for him to get, because we had a lot of conflict at home when he was a dad. It was hard for him to let them have their sense of autonomy, but that's what he learned having had that experience. So anyway, I want to thank you very much for having us, and on behalf of my family, we are very grateful. Thank you.
We just asked everybody to spend a few minutes fellowshipping and getting to say hello to folks before you take off. We have some refreshments right there. So again, thank you all for being here.
that needs?
Nice catch.
Okay, any students? We have Sarah. I got some please enjoy the refreshments and move downstairs. All right, thank you.
Look at the twerking. We don't want too many pictures of me.
No.
We want too many pictures of me.
Not many pictures with you, but I want to take a picture with you for you. Look at me. Thank you. Hello, Miss Patty. Hi. How are you? Hey, before at the